I had spoken to my mother on the phone since November 2017, and in January the 13th, I saw my mother on the TV, on the Chinese global TV network, and she was speaking against me.
For over 2 years, Aziz didn't know if his mother was alive. His family are Uighurs, based in the Chinese region of Xinjiang. Since 2016, China has detained over 1 million Uighur Muslims in Xinjiang.
Usually I used to call her every weekend. Since then, I tried many times. There's no answer. All communication with me and with my friends, cousins, relatives has been cut off.
Aziz is not alone. Throughout this investigation, we have obtained evidence that many families in London are also cut off from their relatives in Xinjiang. To get help, Aziz spoke publicly about his mother, and the Chinese Global Times network responded to his claims.
I saw my mother for the first time on Chinese TV. She was talking on the Chinese TV. Actually, very sad realities against me, against her son. She was very different. She's a practicing Muslim. She always wears hijab. But on the TV, I saw her. She's not wearing hijab. She was dictated what to say on the camera.
And his sister, Berlin.
The broadcast regulator, Ofcom, is now investigating these alleged forced confessions, which are said to be used to cover up the truth about the Chinese government detaining Uighur Muslims in camps involuntarily.
This giant compound is surrounded by a high wall with 16 watchtowers.
Aziz says he has several family members who have been in the camps.
My sister, she was put into the camp. She stayed there more than a year. Any human being in this world, any ethnicity, any race, does not deserve to be treated like this by a regime, by a government.
The situation we have at the moment is that we have between 1 million and 1.5 million of mainly Turkic Muslims extrajudicially interned in re-education camps. The state has been sending party cadres into Uyghur homes, particularly in South Xinjiang, to look for people it deems to be untrustworthy. And in this context, untrustworthy means people who adhere too closely to Islam.
China used to deny that these places exist.
Inmates are forced to learn Chinese by rote learning. They're forced to memorize Chinese laws on religion. Well, the camps seem to be a location for both physical and psychological torture, really.
The detention camps are called Transformation Through Education Centres in the name of combating religious extremification. The UK Chinese ambassador Liu Xiaoming recently defended this.
First of all, I would say there's no so-called labor camps, as you describe. There's what we call vocational education and training centers. They are there for the prevention of a terrorist.
But official documents seen by the BBC show how inmates are locked up, indoctrinated and punished, and families abroad cut off from contacting them.
Essentially, we are seeing Uyghurs in London having their family back in Xinjiang delete them from their social media account, or in the middle of a Skype session hold up notices because they can't warn their family in London in words because the state will be listening in and recording the conversation, but they can hold up a notice and say, don't contact me anymore. We need government representatives to raise these cases, these individual cases, privately. That's the very first step. So, for example, in Aziz's case, I would like to see UK representatives pushing quite hard for Aziz's mother, for her to be allowed to leave and be allowed to come and join her son in London, I think it's time for, not just for the UK, but for all concerned countries within the UN member states to come together and to start to think about ways in which we can put pressure, either economically or politically, on China to persuade China to close the camps and to desist from these awful human rights abuses.
Yeah, this is Picard Cirques.
The Foreign Office denied our request for an interview. Instead, they gave this statement.
These families are in a terrible and desperate situation, and our hearts go out to them. Our staff have met family members in the UK of detained Uyghur Muslims, and we have raised their cases directly with the Chinese authorities.
We have rights. British government must represent our interests as well, or every community like Uyghurs. We shouldn't be excluded from the Foreign Office policy when they deal China. Our voice must be heard. No one look after my mother. I just saw my mother on the Chinese TV. What I want to say, just give my mother a few years happy time before she goes away, before she dies. I want to look after her. Let her to travel to London. That's what I want to say. That's a humanitarian plea, nothing else. Everyone has mother. I want to fulfill my obligation.
Back in his home in London, Aziz still waits for the phone to ring one day. He hopes his story will shed light on the stories of many Uyghurs living here in London. Jem O'Reilly, BBC London.